Let's bring in Stephen Miller now. He's former senior White House advisor and founder of America First Legal for more on Elon's push for free speech. You must love all this, Stephen. And something that Charlie Gasparito just said, which I think is right on. Elon Musk is not a conservative. He smokes pot in public. He's got a lot of dalliances, et cetera. But he is a libertarian, and he's a free market libertarian. And more than that, he believes very strongly in the First Amendment, which is something that the current CEO of Twitter does not. I think most young Americans really have a very similar view of the way they want to live their lives, don't you?
I do. I think that there's a great battle going on in America right now about whether we protect and maintain our status as a free country or whether we descend into autocracy. Joe Biden and his supporters are peddling authoritarianism and autocracy, suppression of speech, suppression of thought, suppression of political activity, and even using the government to go after their political opponents. These are the things that we see in third world countries, in rogue regimes, in failed states. They don't belong in America. So the stakes in this battle really are civilizational.
And we shouldn't be surprised, by the way, that one of the people that's fighting Elon Musk the hardest is a guy who owns 5% of the company. He's the prince from Saudi Arabia, Prince Walid. And he had this Twitter battle with a minor battle, but a significant one between Elon Musk. I won't read the whole thing, but he essentially is saying that he doesn't want Elon Musk to be the head of Twitter. And then Elon Musk answers, interesting, just two questions, if I may. How much of Twitter does the kingdom own, directly and indirectly, which is a very good question? And what are the kingdom's views on journalistic freedom of speech? Does America really want to align themselves with somebody that not only doesn't believe in the First Amendment, like the current head of CEO of Twitter, but somebody who's actively against free speech, like the people that rule Saudi Arabia?
For the left, for our cultural elites, for our Silicon Valley oligarchs, the ends justify the means. Let's consider the central case in point. One of the most earth-shattering political scandals in American history was the Hunter Biden laptop.
Bingo.
This was an event that should have been the most discussed development of the 2020 election. And it was aggressively suppressed as disinformation in a coordinated campaign, right? So everyone came out from under their rocks, right? The security state, the media elite, and then Silicon Valley censors. And so the effect of that was to basically kill a story that could have changed the whole course of world history. For that power, for that ability, there is almost nothing that they will not do and almost no principle they won't sacrifice.
And you know, this attitude is alienating precisely the group of people that they claim to represent, the young people of America. In fact, this Quinnipiac poll that just came out over the past few days is devastating. You look at the approval rating among people between 18 and 34 of Joe Biden. It's 21%. They could only get 21% approval for those young people in America. I think we can put that up on the screen there. It just shows, again, that the alienation that this attitude, this anti-libertarian, anti-First Amendment attitude gets when people are polled about it. And I think it passes over into the midterm elections.
They become the party of conformity and control. They're the party that says, you cannot say what you feel, you can't say what you think, or you'll be ostracized, you'll be blacklisted, you'll be banished. This is, of course, going to be hugely alienating to young voters, but it will require Republicans to take up and own the mantle of free speech and say, yes, we are the free speech party, and we're proud of it.
The other thing, of course, that alienates just about everybody are the lies that are coming out of this administration. Now, everybody was saying it about the Trump administration, counting all the lies, et cetera, et cetera. But the point is, when they get up there and say there is no inflation or the borders are closed, and now he's claiming that all the inflation that we've seen from the beginning of this administration is because of Vladimir Putin. In fact, he talked about that yesterday. Let me just play the soundbite of that and get your reaction. Roll tape.
What people don't know is that 70% of the increase in inflation was a consequence of Putin's price hike because of the impact on oil prices. 70%.
70% is hogwash, Stephen. You and I know that. We can put up a chart. It's very simple. You just look at a simple chart. When did this spike in inflation begin? It began practically right after he was elected president in November of 2020, and it hasn't stopped then. The trajectory of that inflation has been consistent. It hasn't, 70% doesn't come from Putin. It all comes from Biden.
The quality, it's not just that we're being propagandized from this administration. The quality of the propaganda really does feel like something out of a backwater regime. I mean, the idea that Vladimir Putin is responsible for the destruction of the U.S. dollar and that we're supposed to believe this, when Joe Biden did two things when he came into office that caused the inflation crisis. One, he passed the American Rescue Act, and two, he reversed President Trump's energy revolution. Those two actions, and those two actions alone, are what created the conditions for this inflation crisis. So it is Biden's price hike, for which he is 100% responsible. Every drop of oil that the world gets from Russia could be replaced with billions and billions and billions of oil reserves to spare just by American production. We have reserves of oil, shale, and natural gas, what President Trump calls liquid gold, under our feet, that truly make us the envy of the world. But right now, we're the laughingstock of the world because we won't use it.
Stephen, it's not just the president. I mean, there are Democrats all over the country that are facing the same kind of criticism and scrutiny. Chicago's mayor, it turns out, is using COVID funds in order to implement this so-called experiment with universal pay, even if you're not working. $500 a month, they're diverting COVID funds for this, keeping people at home, paying people to stay at home at exactly the time that businesses in Chicago need workers desperately. This is exactly counter to what America needs. And again, I think Americans know that.
Well, the Lightfoot economic policy is the Biden economic policy, which is to pay people not to work. The problem with this, as of course you know, is that it is crippling to both the workers themselves. It's not compassionate for them because it puts them behind in their career path and their ability to provide for their families, and it's crippling to the economy. Yeah. The President Trump policy of saying we want people to get into the workforce, to support themselves financially, is the humane, compassionate approach. And by the way, the reason that we're still short of our jobs pre-pandemic is because of these kinds of short-sighted policies.
Stephen Miller, good to see you. Have a wonderful, wonderful holiday weekend. Appreciate you coming on.